this video, we're going to make a new graphics program together. Now, this one's actually going to combine a bunch of things that we've already learned about how graphics programs work. Before we jump into making it, let me actually show you what we're going to be making. So let me go over here to my completed version and let me run it. It's going to be a program called MouseTracker. Now you'll notice that after running this, I don't actually see anything on the screen. But as soon as I move my mouse, oh my gosh, look, there's a label on the screen. What happens when I move my mouse? What information is this probably telling me? It's actually the X and Y coordinate of where my mouse is. Now, what happens when I click the screen? A box appears. Very exciting. And it gets even better than this. What actually happens when I move my mouse over the label? Look, it turns magenta. And when I move my mouse over the box, the label turns cyan. So we're going to make this happen with a bunch of different graphics programs methods. Let me close out of this and let's make this together. Let's go to New Class. Let's make this a graphics program, and I'm going to call this MouseTracker. And let's go ahead and open that up. Now to start, we know we're going to need a label of some sort. Remember, there's a type for graphics called a GLabel. Let's go ahead and make one. GLabel. I'm just going to call it label. And let's say equals new GLabel. Remember that when I first ran this program, before I moved my mouse, there actually was not any text in that GLabel. I couldn't see anything on the screen. So I'm going to start by just putting quote, quote as my text, which is basically just nothing. And then let's put this at 100, 100. And for now, let's just add label. Eventually, what will this label say is the X and Y coordinates of the mouse. But again, when it starts, it actually shouldn't have anything in it. Let's also add that box that we're going to need. That's going to be a GRect. Let's do GRect box equals new GRect. Now I want you to think, when I ran that program, did you actually start out seeing the GRect on the screen? No, it actually wasn't until I clicked that it kind of moved to where my mouse was. So let me show you a little trick here. Where am I going to start off putting this GRect? Because I do have to give it an X and Y coordinate. Weirdly, I'm going to do this. Let's just put -10,000, -10,000. Where would that actually be on our screen would be kind of so far off the graphics window that we can't see it at all. And that will totally work for us. And let's do 100, 100 for this as well. Then we saw seemed like the box was filled in, so let's do box.setFilled true. And it seemed like, I think it was an orange. Box.setColor to color.orange. And always can't forget, add box. Weirdly, when we run this, will we actually see anything? No, because our box is completely off the screen and our label is blank. Great. All right, let's go ahead and make some stuff happen. We know that all of this has to do with these mouse events. What's happening when the mouse does things? Let's start with the text inside that label. When does the text in the label change? Isn't it when the mouse is moved? Remember, I have to write that special method, public void mouse moved mouse event. And what do I want to do inside this method? Well, I want to do something to the label to change the text inside it. Remember, if I said label dot, what could possibly follow that dot is all of the methods of the GLabel class. If you had to guess what is probably the name of this method we're going to use, there's actually a setText method. And what am I going to set the text to say? Well, it was something like this. X equals event.getX. We haven't talked about this before, but an event is actually an instance as well. And it's an instance of something called a mouse event, which is actually a class. one of the methods in the mouse event class is actually getX. Let's keep going, plus comma y equals event.getY. I don't really love that I've typed this and kind of put spaces on nothing, so let me actually go ahead and space this out a little bit. Let's put a space in between all these pluses here. Usually I like to just, you don't have to do that, but I think it looks a little bit nicer. Now we have one little problem. Oh goodness, it's a problem we've seen before. Undeclared variable label. What's happening here? Label is being declared in which method? In my run method. Where does it actually need to be declared? Label needs to be a global variable. Let me do this. Let's type here glabel label. Now I've declared it globally. What's the issue here? It's still also declared locally. I need to get rid of this glabel to make sure it's just being initialized in here. I never want to double declare a variable. So let's see if this works. Let's see what this looks like. Compile. Let's run the MouseTracker. And there we go. Ah, isn't it so beautiful? All right, I think there were a few more things that needed to happen. Didn't my box need to kind of move to where my mouse was clicked? Let's make that happen next. So let's write the method public void mouse clicked mouse event. Now what should happen when my mouse gets clicked? Shouldn't my box move to where the mouse was clicked? I want to do something to my box, so let's write box dot. And again, what could possibly follow that dot? It's some method of the GRect class, since box is an instance of GRect. And there is a method of GRect called setLocation. You have to give this an X and a Y coordinate. And we really want to set it to event.getX and event.getY. Now, it seems like we're probably going to have the same issue with the box that we had with the label. And in fact, when I click off of this, you can see that's true. It doesn't know that the box existed. So what do we know about box? Box also has to be a global variable. Let's do GRect box. Let's declare it outside of the run method and make sure we're not declaring it inside of the run method. Now, there's one slight nuance to this that's going to be a little bit annoying. When I do set location, what does that actually set the location of for a GRect is the top left corner. It's a little more satisfying that if I click, that's where the middle of the box appears. So let's actually make that change. Now, wouldn't it have been really nice if we actually had a constant to represent the size of the box? Because now we're just going to have to do some math with numbers. Let's actually change this to make a constant. In fact, you'll notice I used the number 100 in a couple places. So let's actually use that as a constant. Let's do private static final int size equals 100. Where we see 100, let's just change this to size. Now, if I change one of these things, it's actually going to change all of them, which is really nice. And now that we know that, if the top left corner of the box is where the mouse is, don't I want to move that box now kind of up the screen by half of the size and left by half of the size? That would make it so that the middle of the box is actually directly on the mouse. So I think from both of these, I want to subtract a size divided by 2. Now let's go ahead and run this and let's see what this looks like. There's my mouse, that's still working, my glabel, and if I click, oh, there's my box. Look, it's beautiful. Sometimes I'm not clicking hard enough and it's getting sad. Okay, we have, I think, 2 more things to make happen, which is that there are certain things in this program that actually will change the color of this glabel. Isn't one of them when my mouse is kind of touching the glabel? There's another one when my mouse is actually touching the box. When will I check this? It's not necessarily super clear from just watching me play around with my program over the video, but I'm not clicking to make that happen. So this is actually happening as my mouse is moving. So I think all of our changes are going to go inside of this mouse moved method. Now I only want to change the color. I only want to change the color if my mouse is kind of over the label or over the box. So I think I'm going to need some sort of if statement here. Now the question is, how do I actually check that my mouse is touching the label? Well, I could do some kind of crazy math because I know where the label is on my screen to figure out if the mouse is touching. But there's actually a built-in method to all graphics programs that's going to be really useful here. And that is a method called getElementAt. What getElementAt tells me is, hey, which object is on the felt board at exactly these coordinates? So if I just did getElementAt 200, 200, that would give me back the object that's at location 200, 200, or give me back nothing if there's actually nothing there. Now we don't actually want to check it for 200, 200. I want to check if there is an element at where the mouse is. We know that we can get the mouse's location by doing event.getX and event.getY. This will give me what thing on the felt board exists where the mouse is, or nothing if there's nothing there. Looking at our program, what possible things could that be? Couldn't it be the label? So if that equals label, what actually happens then? Do you remember what color should my label get set to? It's actually magenta. So let's do label.setColor to color.magenta. I think there is an else here, right? Because there are kind of other options. Hypothetically, if I'm not touching the label, what else could I be touching? Couldn't I be touching the box? Let's do if getElementAt event.getX event.getY. If that's the box, then what color do we want to set this label to? Label.setColor to, it's actually color.cyan. And you might be wondering, why didn't I just automatically set the color of the label to cyan? Isn't it either the label or the box that the mouse will be touching? It's not exactly the case, because couldn't the mouse actually be touching nothing? And if we look, when the mouse is touching nothing, shouldn't the label actually just be black? So in here, I need one more layer to this. There's kind of three options to this puzzle. Label.setColor to color.black. And let's compile this and run it and see what we've got. There we go. There's our coordinates. If I mouse over them, ooh yeah, there's that magenta. And if I go back, it's back to black. If I click on the screen, there's my square. You can see actually when I mouse over the square, it's cyan. Magenta, cyan, magenta, cyan. There we go. Now, this is our first example of some code that we've written that includes what I'm going to call a nested if statement. All that means is an if statement inside of another if statement. That's what nesting is, something inside of something else. And I just want to break down again, what exactly is happening here. If the thing on the felt board where the mouse is the label, we're going to do this. Otherwise, what's left over, what could it be? It's either the box, or if we get to this else, it's actually nothing and we want to set the color to black. This program is a program that uses events. What's it actually listening for is any mouse movements and any mouse clicks. Events can be super useful if you're trying to make a game or trying to make something cool happen with motion or something similar in a different program. We're getting a lot better at practicing how to use these events, and now we've learned this really useful different command, this getElementAt.